show. It's Ben.
It's Ben.
How are you?
Good to see you.
What's up?
Hey,
How are you,
doing
man?
good.
Good to see you.
Good.
Well done.
Years, that's all it took to poison the ocean, meadow and brook. Turn this creation to devastation. That's all it took. 100 years. When the next ice age comes, cause it we must. As the hole in the ground turns iron to rust. The choices we're making can't be undone. The warm sun rays turn soil to dust. Years, 100 years, a blink of an eye in the grand scheme of things. To undo what so many years have done. Roll back the sky, turn back the sun. When the next big one comes, it'll be over water. Think now first of your son or your daughter. They'll be the ones left holding the bag of dry desert sand, our beautiful land. Years to cause Earth's revision, comet collision, or just bad decisions. Hurricanes, earthquakes, 100 years. That's all it took. 100 years. That's all it took. 100 years. That's all it took.
Ben Bernstein, I've known since I think 2007.
Yeah.
I contacted you about producing some music. You did that and went on to an illustrious career.
Yes, yes.
Having already come from one as a seasoned band member, session player, all the above.
Yeah.
And now Ben,
Peppery.
as well as playing in a variety of projects and playing on a lot of people's material and recordings, has had Petting Zoo Studio for actually the duration of time, pretty much. How long have you had Petting Zoo now?
Since about 2007.
So he's got all sorts of production credits, and we're excited to have him here. So you have a lifetime of music, so instead of trying to tell the total story, but just talking about like what was that initial spark of music for you,
Yeah.
and how do you keep that tended through all the different things you end up doing?
Yeah, I mean, I grew up with an older brother who was 8 years older with a record collection, and he would DJ dances. There was always like, 70s and 80s rock blaring, upstairs. So I kind of grew up like that, and then I think there was a guitar laying around, and then I think at one point he convinced my parents to buy me a drum set.
Oh,
So I
interesting.
learned the drums.
Did
and
he
then-
play?
He kind of played the guitar, but he didn't keep up with it. I mean, his whole thing is like he became like a promoter. Another gift of my brother was like, I think my 16th birthday, he bought me like some like the Vestax. It wasn't even a Fostax.
Your brother that
the
was like
Vestax. Like, yeah, and I had the 4-track, and I produced a punk band, and me and my buddies recorded some stuff. And then, so I had that, and then I studied in college. So I was kind of going back and forth with recording. At that point, I went back to school for it, just for a year. Like, I was like, I need to, like, kind of, like, brush up and to really focus. That's when I met you. I think when I got into high school, there were so many drummers, and I was trying to get in the jazz band. And the band director was just like, hey, I got enough drummers, and, like, you're okay. But I need a bass player. You want to learn the bass? I'm like, sure. And he gave me this piece of junk, like Epiphone bass, which now you look back, it was like an SG Epiphone bass. It just hadn't been tended to. Like, someone fixed that bass up. Anyways, I took it home and plugged it into my sister's like stereo. That was my amp, and it was just like. And like my mom would be like, yeah, like you sound a little better today. And then I went to some like week-long, like the Jamie Abersol jazz camp. I don't know if you jazzers out there remember Jamie Abersol. He had the whole Music -1 where you got like the record and the jazz book, and if you panned it all the way to the left, like the bass would disappear so you could play it on. Or if you panned it all the way to the right, the piano would disappear, but you always had the drums, and you kind of had your little like, this was before like GarageBand, all that stuff. You could jam with the combo. And I went there, and somehow I figured out how to like connect the dots and walk a bass line, and I auditioned for the jazz band, and like I got in, and we had this like award-winning jazz band. And,
cool.
Yeah, my buddy Ryan Kaiser, the trumpet player, he's gone on to play with like Lincoln Center. He's just, I mean, he's got to be in the top 10 trumpet players like in the world. So
awesome.
that was a cool experience. And so that kind of got me into it, and then I went to college, and college and all that, and floated to New York and studied more, and just started playing in bands and touring. And
did you study music in college?
I did initially, but then I kind of was like young and like opinionated. I was like, I don't want to take all these like classical music classes and all that. So I took all the music classes I wanted to, and then I took recording classes, and then I shifted to getting a major in recording. But I would take as many music classes and play in many ensembles as I could, without having to commit to like classical theory and bowing a bass and getting up at 8 a.m. and stuff. But I always absorbed that, so, but then I learned how to like, they had a little studio there, and they had like Pro Tools, and this was like the, early 90s,
Right.
I was always kind of doing both.
All right, here's a song. I've done this one on Love the Bay before, but I'm going to this place next week, it being summer, and I'm really excited. And I'm also playing it on an instrument that I do not know how to play. So here we go. That makes it different. It's a different version.
It's all good.
It's got a funny sound. It's a rather fun small town. If you've been there, you know why people go to O-Kee-Bo-G. 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 Well, it's got a couple lakes, and the pubs all serve steaks. If you want a microbrew, Bud Light will have to do. In O-Kee-Bo-G. 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 And getting tipsy in the tipsy house. Well, I crawled out like a mouse, and I crashed my bumper car into the nutty bar. I'm past the point of no return, and I got a real bad sunburn. In O-Kee-Bo-G. O-Kee-Bo-G. Coming here since I was 10. I'm going back now, I don't know when. with me, people. O-Kee-Bo-G. One more time. O-Kee-Bo-G. All right, thank you, love the band. All right.
And I actually went to school in Chicago for a year before I moved to Texas. And I love Chicago, but man, it just never seemed to warm up there. So I bailed on that. I went to Austin because I visited someone in Austin like in February, and everyone's like Tuesday, like drinking beer, like at the river at noon, like and skipping class. I was like, this is awesome. It's like going to school in Mexico. I was living in Austin, and it was like Towns was still alive, and like, you know, Robert Earl King and Jerry Jeff Walker. I'd seen signs like them playing in like, you know, cafes and like benefits all the time, and Willie's like 4th of July, and I never went and saw that shit. And then as soon as I moved to New York, I started to get more and more into that. I was like, oh my god, I could have just, yeah. But I did see some stuff at the Cactus Cafe. I worked for KUT Radio as an internship. I worked with this guy Walter Morgan who did this thing called Live Set, and they would do two things. They had an amazing studio in the basement of the communications building at the University of Texas, and I was his intern, and I would run monitors. And he had really great acts and really great Austin-based singer-songwriters coming in and doing stuff. But then we would also go remote. We'd go over to the Cactus Cafe and record stuff there. And I remember like seeing Norman Blake, Dar Williams, and Jimmy Dale Gilmore, you know, stuff like that. And I think I was like smart enough to be like, oh, this is pretty cool. All those singer-songwriters played the Cactus Cafe.
Yeah.
Like, I don't care how big they were. Yeah, that was a cool experience. Yeah, I just wasn't going anywhere, and I think I was in a relationship that was like kind of like seeing its course. And I had a buddy, my buddy Philip Loeb, who's actually Lisa Loeb's brother, had moved to New York, and he was getting into post-production. And I was like, oh, maybe I need to go to New York. And then I found this place called the Bass Collective, which was like you could go do like intensive studies in like the bass and like, you know, jazz and contemporary music, and learning like Latin rhythms and all this stuff, and study with people like John Patitucci and like really like big name bass players in New York. This is where they were teaching, so I just signed up for that. I went. My buddy Tom Gruskin, back from Sioux City, Iowa, he had a loft he was sharing with like an ex-girlfriend, and he's like, hey man, like you can live here. So I moved into like a 1,500 square foot like room in the Lower East Side, and you know, had a mattress on the floor. I think I slept on a camping mattress for like a month until I was sure I wasn't going to go anywhere. And then studied, and then I started working for his internet company that was like streaming videos, like, you know, at 56K, and it like would just crash your computer instantly. Way before YouTube. And then playing. I got into a bluegrass band called City Grass. I answered an ad, like a wall, and the Bass Collective had a little tear down the thing. Remember that? You like tear down the thing with the guy's number. And I met this guy Sandy, and we put together a bluegrass band called City Grass, and we just started playing all over the place. And from there, I joined this kind of like Jewish jam band called Soul Farm with a member of City Grass, and just playing and then working. And then I ended up like just playing. I ended up working in a restaurant. I have like at the coffee bar, juice bar, waiting tables at this place called The Sanctuary, which is run by Hari Krishnas at First, and like beautiful people, like just amazing. I mean, I was literally like kind of down and out in the subway, and I ran into this guy. I think his name was Satchitananda.
Oh yeah,
and he's like, he looked at me, he goes, do you need a job? I was like, kinda. He's like, come on.
Were you busking or something?
No, I just kind of looked blue, you know? You know, and I think after like 3 years, I was like, F it, I'm moving to San Francisco, and I moved out here.
Alright, so this is a song I wrote 14 years ago when my daughter was born. A good friend of mine, Mike Fox, who I played in a bluegrass band with, he's like, "Well, you gonna write a song for your daughter?" And I was like, "Damn, dude, nice assignment. Like, I'm like knee deep in this." But I sat down. She was taking a nap. It was like the second day, and I wrote the song. And now I owe my other two daughters a song, so I better get busy. Anyways, she's 14 now.
Gosh.
Whoa, look at that thing. Here we go. Well, I wrote this song
had you been to San Francisco before?
Yeah, I kind of grew up coming out here because I had family out here in Marin County. So we'd spend like every other summer we'd come out here. So it's like that was like the big city, you know, that you kind of went to when you were a kid.
How was that landing here then?
It was good, you know. I'd come out and I met this guy at a blues jam. This is my friend Byron Rhines, and like, you know, kind of like I think half baked, like, oh yeah, there's plenty going on here with music. So I came back and then I just went to the Blue Lamp and I was like, I'm in town. I started playing like
The Blue Lamp.
I know.
Everybody goes to the Blue Lamp.
Well, Blue Lamp no more, man.
No,
The Blue
but-
Lamp was actually an amazing venue. Like, I don't think they ever cleaned the walls. It was all this like, you know, red velvet. You know, apparently Bird played there. You know, Charlie Parker, but it was kind of an old speakeasy kind of juke joint from back in the day, and we'd play like R&B, soul, funk cover gigs there, and then just started playing, and just different projects, and eventually I got into a touring band called New Monsoon and did that for 3 years. And once I stopped doing that, that's when I was like doing the studio thing, because I started to have children, and I was like roaming around and playing gigs and
Right.
playing till 3 in the morning doesn't really make sense. I think I actually get pretty far into people I'm producing and their songs, because if someone comes to me like, hey, I got 15 songs, I'm like, all right, well, let's pre-produce, let's talk about it, and I'll get in there and be like, that word, you could do more. I can tell that's a lazy rhyme,
Right.
you know, or hey, don't need the bridge, where's the bridge, or let's move this. So, you know, but I
All
always...
these 3 songs are really the same song.
Yeah, or, you know, you keep repeating this lyric in every song, so you get to
Right.
use it once. I don't try and make them like, okay, like I rewrote the entire song and played it while you went home kind of
Right,
guy. It's
right.
more like, here's your song, here's what I think would be really great to do, and you have total veto over it, and we'll do it your way, and
Right.
that's fine. But
Right.
most of the time, people are like, oh yeah, I totally considered that. Or I considered that, I went back, and then I came up with this, and I'm like, great, let's revise, let's iterate at least once,
Uh-huh.
so that you can make sure you fulfill like the potential of that song as you want it, you know?
Right.
You know, I think I'm a pretty good like coach, and I've been around enough music to know, like, I know the formulas and I know how to break them,
Uh-huh.
and I also know like when it's cool to just do something that's totally left field but like hasn't been done.
Right.
And I also know to be like, I don't know what you're doing, it's totally unorthodox, but it's so cool, I'm not saying anything.
Well, I'm drifting down to New Orleans, got a penny in my hand, going down to Frenchman Street to find a ragtime band. I'll join up on the tuba, maybe violin, stay up all night playing rags. Some say that it's a sin, spotted like a cat and blue just like the Nile. They say the alligator tastes just like crocodile. Though I know it's gonna be real hard, well, I got to find the means for getting to New Orleans. I'm headed uptown in New Orleans, I got a heart full of desire, rowing on a streetcar that never seems to tire. Headed up to City Park, got my money in my shoes, got to find a shanty lane to keep from paying dues. Maybe I get a banjo and learn to sing the blues. I try my hand at poker or fiddling voodoo. Well, it really doesn't matter, well, I got to find a means of staying in New Orleans. Well, I'll be slipping out of New Orleans, got a
penny to a name. Just pointing fingers here and there, say I'm the one to blame. Tired of tribulations, writing on the walls of the ancient parish pensions. Well, I must have read them all. Well, sometimes I'm loaded with whiskey in my pants. Other times I'm bloated in a twisted Turkish trance. I had enough hard rowing, I got to find the means for leaving New Orleans. I'm leaving New Orleans.
What's exciting you about music these days?
One thing I like doing is like Spotify like radio lists, like hey, Black Pumas radio or Nathaniel Rateliff radio or First Aid Kit radio, because that's how you're discovering new music, like discovering bands like was it Lake Street Drive, and like Charles Lloyd, and I must admit I've listened to way too much of the Grateful Dead channel in the last 18 months, but it's like
that's kind of like your
there's so, but it's like, you know, because you'd be at home and I'm doing the dishes and you can't go anywhere. That kind of got me through initially, but then do the whole WWOZ radio out of New Orleans,
right?
Tons of that. They never play anything bad, especially if they've been doing the whole jazz festing in place thing. I just like turn that on. I mean, I will have that on the whole time. They're playing archives from Jazz Fest or French Quarter Fest or this fest. Like I could listen to that all day. Like to me, that's where it's at. And you know, I like listening to KPFA on the weekends, Blues by the Bay. Sunday afternoons they've got America's Back 40, Panhandle Country. There's some great folk music going on there. Whenever Tim Lynch is on doing Dead of the World, I actually like it when Tim Lynch subs for the Sunday DJs, because he plays less of the jam band stuff and more of the Americana stuff, and he like every song is like perfectly picked. Like, but I like the randomness. I like listening to the radio. It's KPOO in San Francisco. Man, you know, especially when you get that guy, he does all vinyl, like all classic soul vinyl, you know, and just like the craziest stuff. Or Tom Petty radio, he's got that Tom Petty's Buried Treasures. I think they probably got 5 years worth of that stuff that he did before he died. And then at one point, was it like last summer, they did 48 hours of Bob Dylan theme time on like, I don't know what channel took over on Sirius, but if you listen to every one of those, that would be like a class. Like a master class in just, you know, American music.
Money in the bank only goes so far. When we take it out, it's gonna leave a scar. Keep your eyes on what it's all about. What to do when the lights go out.
Fill a bag with beans and rice. Let your cat chase away the mice. Cast around for a different round. What to do when the lights go out? Well, your panic walk, don't run, don't listen to the men who live by the gun. Read your list. When the lights go out, you know what to do.
When the tanks are full,
There's water to drink.
and there's a box of matches by the sink.
There's no room for any more doubt. What to do when the lights go out? pad. Lights ran out and left the pad. You felt your way around the house. What to do when the lights go out? Sirens wail, buildings burn, leaders fail, and children learn. The blind will see, the dumb will shout. We'll all be there when the lights go out. What to do when the lights go out?
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 There's a couple different things here, because there's like Ben, bass player.
Yeah.
You play a lot of different people, and you obviously have a lot of different influences.
Yes.
But then there's Ben, the songwriter, who occasionally
Right.
kicks out a song. What's generally what gets you started writing a song? Is it like a feeling or a curiosity?
So more recently, it's been kind of like waking up with something and just being like, I gotta write down that lyric, you know? And I'll have to admit, I do not write that much.
Mhm.
Life kind of took over, like with kids, and I've worked on so many other people's stuff. And like literally, I had big plans for the pandemic. I have all these songs recorded. I think they're probably done, but it's like me sitting down and being like, okay, mix is done. But I was like, I'm gonna finish the EP or the record. And like literally, there was always too much going on, you know, between like homeschool with my kids or like putting down a part or mixing something for someone or like whatever. Like I just never got to it. It was this is my pandemic failure.
Well, it's actually exhibit A for why it's good to have a producer. Because if you have a producer or a bandmate or someone
Yes.
who's like,
Put it out.
otherwise, it's like it doesn't happen.
Yeah, I pulled out a song like a month ago that I'd recorded and sent to Mike Stevens to put on drums, and I was like, I listened to it once, and I was like, I think it's good, and then I just pulled out the rough mix he sent me, and I was like, shit, I think that's done. I was like, it's pretty good, and that was a song I had written. It's called "Carry My Burden," but I had written it 8 years ago after my third daughter was born. My mom like got sepsis, and I was back in Iowa for like a month off and on. And I was just going over to my friend Ryan Kaiser's house like every day because he lived down the street from the hospital. I needed a break and hanging out. And I think I was walking back up the street to go back to hang out with my mom. And this thing just popped into my head. And I was just like kind of, you know, walking along. And I had this thing. And I think I like either was writing it down on my notes or I sang it into my phone. Yeah, more recently, like I think if I wake up with something, I try and just like write it down or get down and like start to play a guitar thing, and then like with the most recent time I think I did that, and I was like kind of hot on it for like a day or so and kept like reworking it. So like in my notes or in my voice memos, I've got this thing, and I'm gonna have to go back now and be like, it'll probably be like a year. I'll be like, okay, there's a song in there.
Yeah.
This is the one I wrote, I guess about 8 years ago when my mom was in the hospital. It was really sad. I'm gonna carry my burden, saddle my load, down along the highway, this turbulent road. No sense of direction, just a wing and a prayer. Gonna carry my burden, carry it there. Well, my legs are too short to reach for the sky. Don't have any answers, don't ask me why. I'll tell you one thing, I'll tell you one more. My legs are too short to reach for the door. Well, open your arms, shelter me from the storm. I'm not asking for handouts or some other form. Just show me some mercy, show me the way. Put an end to my suffering,
to pick up the pieces, unfurl my brow. I'm gonna saddle my burden and put down the plow. Going down to the pump house with a wing and a prayer. I'm gonna carry my burden, carry it there. Carry my burden, carry my burden, carry my burden. Going down to the pump house on a wing and a prayer. Gonna carry my burden, carry it there.
Yeah.
Thank
Woohoo!
you.
Ben, thanks so much for coming out on the boat with us and for being our first post-COVID.
Do you have any hand sanitizer?
I do.
Thank you guys.